welcome everyone. Today we're talking about countercultural Jesus. The fact that Jesus was countercultural in his time. And so today we have Pastor Jared in the house.
What's up? What's up?
And Pastor Jared is a pastor and has been a pastor for now a few years.
Yeah.
And so he leads the youth ministry at our church. And I have Pastor Kevin.
Hi.
And Pastor
What's
Kevin
up?
is overseeing all the creative aspects of the church. And so, of course, myself, and we've been pastoring now for all of us together, well, for quite a few years now.
Yeah.
And if not pastoring, at some way or another involved in the church for so many years.
Yeah.
And so we've seen and we've heard about Jesus even before we became pastors for quite some years. So the topic here is, how was Jesus countercultural in his time when he was alive here and walking on this earth? Of course, we know that he's alive, but he was on this earth, walking on this earth, and God himself. I mean, that just the thought of that Jesus would walk the earth, and how was it that he was countercultural? I have a few thoughts in my mind, but I wanted to run it by you, and kind of have that little dialogue. So,
Yeah.
what do you think?
You go first, PJ.
Well, I think in order to kind of talk about how countercultural Jesus was, you probably want to talk about what he was not. And a lot of us have a misconception that Jesus is this sweet, very meek, real calm
Laid
guy, nice hair,
Yeah.
very flowy and
Yeah.
just calm. I mean, there's people that wear those shirts say like Jesus is my homeboy and stuff like
Yeah.
that, like just the guy's like peace and love.
Yeah.
Like, and he was a little bit about love and a little bit about peace, but
Yeah.
man, the guy wasn't just peace and love. He had a
Yeah,
whole
like
other
he was.
part of him.
You always see the portrait of Jesus, like he's throwing a curveball, right? Like
Yeah,
he's
he's
got
like-
this little hand, like
it's just like,
with sunken cheeks and sticking out.
and that
he's-
wasn't him, right?
And he's always white in the pictures.
That's true.
Yeah.
He wasn't white.
Yeah, I know, right?
So what's
He
the deal with
wasn't
that,
white,
Pastor Jared? So with that, man,
I think I'm the closest to his skin color, his
It
tone.
was- but what I mean is in the culture, the way they look at what you're saying is the way they looked at Jesus, the way they look at Jesus, the way they think about him is like this, like I don't know.
well, the fact is that he was Jewish, right? So
Right.
Yeah.
he couldn't have possibly been that Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, because to know what he was countercultural towards, we need to know what was the culture like in that time.
Absolutely.
So you got the Jews who are over there. They got the Roman Empire who's
That's right.
occupying the land, and
That's right.
they're oppressing them, and they got their gods.
Yeah.
They
Absolutely.
got their mysterious religions of gods. It's mentioned in the Bible, all these different kinds of gods too. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
that was being pushed, that was being promoted, and they looked upon the Jews like with racism, probably.
Yeah.
Like these are the lesser kind,
Yeah.
and our God is the real God. Your God is, I mean, look at, where is your God?
Right.
We're occupying your land. So Jesus chose that time, like on purpose.
Yeah.
Why do you guys think that
Yeah,
was?
I love that. I love what you said about he chose that on purpose because he was in the history of the time. God in his sovereignty said that Jesus was to come during that time,
Yeah.
Right.
and so I think it was on purpose to show us that, and through the times,
Yeah.
to show us how he was so countercultural
Yeah.
when it came to you were talking about the religious leaders of the time, and he would always fight against the religious establishment
Yeah.
Yeah.
of the time. He would go after them
Yeah.
and saying, "You guys ignore the scriptures. You guys don't know what you're talking about." And,
Nobody did that.
and
Right.
no
No
one
one
would
did that.
challenge. No one
Yeah.
would dare to challenge the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and no one would dare challenge them because they were the know-it-alls. They were the
Right.
ones that religious, and they were not just religious, but they knew the Torah,
Right.
the Bible, right?
Yeah.
Like, so they knew more than anyone else, and so the people, the peasants, and the people that were around, they couldn't possibly, the commoners couldn't possibly argue against them.
Right.
So here comes Jesus, and he argues against them in favor of the commoner, in favor of the lesser than, the people that are not as educated.
You know what? You say that, and I think that the ones who were threatened by Jesus were those who were in authority or in high ranks or in high places, because he attracted those in need,
Absolutely.
the sick,
Yeah, he
the
did.
poor. He, like, those people were attracted to him, and the other ones he kind of like looked like he was rebelling towards.
Well, that's what Jesus says, that he was the cornerstone.
Right.
That everything was going to be, everything that went against God. Well, the cornerstone of what? What does it mean? A cornerstone is when you're building something, the builder looks at that cornerstone as a foundation to build everything.
Right. That's right.
And so if your religion is not according to that cornerstone, you cannot build on that. If your politics are against, let's talk about politics, y'all. I'm just telling you, if your government, the way that you think about government is not on that cornerstone, then it's not going to be built.
Yeah.
If the social status that you have in your mind about how to treat people, it's not according to that cornerstone, then it's not going to be built. And so Jesus comes and destroys all of that. And when it comes to the politics, when it comes to the religion, when it comes to the traditions, the social spectrum, he just destroys it all and says, look, I am the cornerstone. This is the way it ought to be done. And I just love that about Jesus.
Yeah.
I remember the disciples were just probably astonished, because he wanted he picked fishermen, and he picked, specific people at first, but then he goes and picks out the tax collector too.
That's crazy.
Right.
And nobody, like, the Jews
Within
didn't
that
talk.
time, yeah.
They didn't talk. They were like traitors. The tax collectors were like, why are you talking to this guy? And they go to preach at the different regions, and you got the Jews, but then you have, what are the other ones from the, I'm blanking on the parable of the
Man, there's so many parables.
Yeah.
the parable where the man is laying on the ground, and here comes you're talking
about the Good Samaritan?
the Samaritans.
Yeah,
They had that
Samaritans.
racial tension with the Samaritans.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And Jesus sends his disciples to go preach
Yes.
to Samaria.
Yeah.
So there goes that.
And even the story, the guy that helped, the Samaritan is the one that helped that Jewish person
Right.
that was on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Everyone passed him by
Everyone that was an established
Yeah.
person,
of some economic background with some sort of
Or
career
religious.
Yes, correct.
and even the ones that Jesus selected, all of the disciples or the disciples that we know now as the disciples, back then they were not called disciples. They were
Yeah.
just
Students,
fishermen,
yeah.
students, people that were, they said that likely they were not educated. They were not as educated.
What's that saying? The unschooled ordinary men.
Pretty much.
Unschooled.
Very,
Unschooled.
very, very
Idiotes was the
ordinary.
word, right?
Idiotes.
Idiotes.
The Greek.
Idiotes is the Greek, which
Idiotes.
comes from the word.
Yeah,
The
it's-
word.
Yeah. Idiot. Let's just say what it is, right? Counterculture.
And so God used those people
Yeah.
Yeah.
to show the rest. Look, this is what I can do with people that everyone else considers. Let's be countercultural here, because this is a word that was used even in politics. These are the people that are deplorables.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna use them.
Yeah. And imagine
Yeah.
imagine following Jesus in that time. Like, I think it would have been both exciting and scary,
Right.
because it's like, oh man, you're gonna call these Pharisees a brood of vipers, or
That's
like
yeah.
you're gonna challenge, that they must have gotten warned by the Roman government, at some point, like, hey, we don't want to disturb the peace, kind of thing, and they still kept doing what they were doing, and so that would have been like, yeah, we're starting a revolution, but at the same time, like, oh man, like, fear for your family, and
Yeah,
fear, like, what
that's
is gonna happen. You didn't know exactly what was gonna happen, so that was
it's so interesting because even Jesus's birth is countercultural in that time, because Jesus came from this humble town,
Yeah.
and this is supposed to be the king, right? This is
Yeah.
supposed to be the leader of the people, if you will.
Mm.
Yet coming from this little town, born in a stable,
Yeah.
right? Born in this pretty much a barn, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
barn,
you
yeah.
You got pigs there, you got everything there, and like even like how he came to be is so countercultural compared to what people were expecting
Yeah.
for a king to be like, or this Messiah to be like, because they had heard about him obviously, and they're just expecting something probably to ascend from the sky or descend from the skies or something, right? But he does not. Just like the whole
Yeah.
beginning of Jesus is so
Yeah.
countercultural in that time anyway.
Well, he was. I mean, if you think about it, Mary was pregnant, which means he was almost born out of wedlock.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's what it
True
looked
that.
like.
So it looked like that,
That's what
right?
it
It's
looked
like,
like, yeah.
Well, everyone
where's,
thought that.
where's
for
the
sure.
daddy of that kid?
Well,
you
I
know?
mean, Joseph has to hide Mary, right?
Yeah,
Because if
wanted to
not,
hide
she's gonna
her.
get stoned,
Correct.
and get killed. And oh my gosh, now what?
So he had to go and defend her and say, "Oh, we're about to get married.
Right.
That really is my
you
kid."
got a little too excited or something.
Hurry
I
up
don't
the
know what
wedding.
happened,
Yeah.
Shotgun
Shotgun
wedding.
wedding,
Speed it up,
baby.
Let's speed it up. because-
We don't know what happened.
But I love that about Jesus, that even because right now we have a lot of concepts that are good concepts about females, about how we treat women,
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
how we treat kids and children. Back then, we tend to forget that this was not common back then,
Right.
where a woman was treated nicely.
Yeah.
Right.
A woman wasn't even accounted as important as a man.
Mm-hmm.
Now to us, it's like, yeah, we are equal in importance,
That's right.
and Jesus brought that to the forefront
Yeah.
when he defended that woman that was about to be stoned. Not only was she a woman,
She was an
but
adulterer
she was caught in adultery,
in the act.
in the act of
is crazy,
adultery.
right.
And here comes Jesus to defend her against the politicians that probably wanted to say, I want nothing to do with this lady. I mean, she's trouble.
Yeah, the religious folk.
And then the religious people that were saying, yeah, I mean, she is wrong.
Yeah.
And here comes Jesus defending not just someone who was caught in adultery, in the act of adultery,
Yeah.
but she was also a woman. So interesting. And so that was, back in those times, that was unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't happen. Or when Jesus says, let the children come to me, like Peter and all the disciples were like, get away from
do it. Yeah,
don't get away from these kids. And Jesus is like, no, let them come to me. This is so totally out of the normality back in his time. This was not done.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting, and how Jesus confounded the intellect of the people of the time, because they were like, what is he doing? Is he doing this on purpose? Like, is he running for office? Like, what is he trying to do?
Yeah,
is he
that's right,
trying to
yeah.
become the king here? And is he trying to take over the Roman Empire? What is he trying to do? Then he goes and he feeds the multitudes, and people think for sure now he's got an army because he's
Yeah.
feeding
Right.
his soldiers.
Yep.
But
5,000 men. Yeah.
Oh my Lord! I mean,
Crazy.
5,000 men were not really just men, and we talked about this on a Sunday. They were more than considered that every man represented a family. In the Jewish
Yeah.
family, there were about 3 to 4 per family, so that means that he must have fed like 20 to 25,000 people.
Crazy.
And so, but yet Jesus, they got it all wrong. That's not why he came. He didn't come to build an army of soldiers. He came to save those that were lost.
Yeah.
So I just find that amazing how Jesus was breaking the paradigm that people had in their minds when it came to religion, when it came to politics, to even social economics, when the gentleman, the tax collector,
Right.
Yeah.
and just kind of breaking it all and saying no. I remember the story of this woman that came in, and everyone was giving their offerings, and then this lady comes and she gives what would be the equivalent of like a penny, and he goes, "This woman, she gave him more than every one of you."
Right.
And I thought, oh, my Lord, like
She gave it all.
she gave it
everything
all.
she had. Yeah.
I just love that about Jesus.
What would it have been like if Jesus would have come at this time? Let's say, like, okay, he didn't choose the Roman occupation timeline history. What if the Savior of the world came right now? What would countercultural things would he have done that would have shocked us, the government? You know, because now we're like those. We kind of take the place of those Pharisees, right? Like, because we're the teachers, we're the ones who are leading our church and doing that. So
Well,
what would it be like
we
to
don't
us?
take their place. I was gonna say, man, like,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe people look to us as people who are.
That's
the
a good
religious-
Yeah,
point,
we're
Kevin.
the
That's
we're the religious
Yeah.
ones, right? I mean, we're the
Right.
and then you got the government, right?
Yeah, it's true.
And then you have like the common people that are, I mean, we're common folk too, but you know what I mean? Like the average Joe, the person who just has a
correct.
normal trade job.
I would
How would
say-
have Jesus like affected the world right now?
Yeah, I would say the office of a religion, right? So you have the Pharisees who had the office of,
right.
and the Sadducees, and all of them had the office of a religion or the position or the title.
Yeah.
And Jesus came to say that you needed a relationship.
Hmm.
You needed to have I think if he would, I believe wholeheartedly that if Jesus were to be here, he would say that you need to have a relationship.
It's so good.
It's not about the religion. It's not about
The works. It's not
the
about
works. It's not about how much you're able to do. It's about having a relationship with him.
Right.
And that was what he was stressing all along, every time, all the time. People wanted to get into politics with him. Should we give our taxes or
They
not?
were about like
Caesar, yeah.
the rules. and,
Correct.
no heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
All rules, no heart.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
always about that. It was all about, well, should we do this? Should I take my animal out and on the Sabbath
Right.
Right.
or not?
Right. Well, if your family is starving, like
Right.
you have to take care of. You
Yeah.
know,
I mean, how many times does that come up? You know, should he heal people on the Sabbath?
right.
You know, the Pharisees were like, "Oh my gosh, he's doing these things on the Sabbath day, right?" And
Yeah.
Jesus is like so countercultural in that time.
But-
But I think
yeah.
Jesus would do the same thing. Like his tactic would be the same. He's not hanging
Right.
out with the religious folk or the government peeps. He's going to go to the people that are in need of him. You know, like the ones that are hurting, the ones that are broken,
Absolutely.
the ones that you wouldn't think he'd hang out with.
Yeah.
But those are the ones he'd want to be with.
So who would those people be?
Well, that's what stinks. 'Cause
Right,
I'm like,
like,
dang, I don't
the
think you want to
needy.
hang out with me. He's like, you're
Yeah,
already
the
good.
needy.
You're found. Like, let me
You're
go with
like
these other
you're
people,
at
you know?
the bottom of
Yeah.
the list.
Right. Like,
Sorry,
So,
Pastor
like,
Jerry.
I'll be like, man. dang.
Yeah, he would. I mean, he would go
Yeah.
to those who are oppressed.
Right.
He would go to those. He would go.
Suffering injustices.
He would go to those who are like in danger.
Right.
You know, like those who are about to be stoned. Like who are
Yes.
those people?
Yes.
And man, like how will we follow him?
Well,
That's-
the crazy
that's
thing
that's
is
the
he's
challenge.
going to pull those people closest to him.
Yeah.
He's going to start working on people who are,
Yeah.
they have no idea who he is. Just, would you just come with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why you always keep an attitude of I don't care what my office might be.
Right.
It's about my relationship
Yeah,
with Jesus
that's so
at
true.
the end of the day, right? Because the office, the titles, and the accolades and everything is gonna go by the wayside at the end of the day.
Right.
It don't matter.
And so, where is Jesus moving? That's where I want to be at.
Yes.
Where is
And
he going?
we would be so in tuned with God that when we saw him, we would know it's him, because the Pharisees just didn't know.
Correct.
Right.
They just couldn't, like, if they did what you're talking about, spending
That's right.
time in God's presence and really like having the heart and love for people, then they would have identified the Messiah and been like, this is him.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was like Nicodemus's kind of like he was trying to scratch on that, and because he probably did do that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And there's those who defended him and said like, no, he's innocent, that he's done nothing wrong, and they probably had that, but they were outweighed and probably like outvoted by those who didn't like Jesus.
Yeah.
And so that we would be so in tune with God that if he would have come in this time, we're like, that's him.
Right.
Recognize his voice. Right?
Yes, that's what he would do.
And that's what he said, right? He said that we are the sheep and he is a shepherd. And the sheep hear his voice.
Yeah.
And well, the question is, well, how can I continue to hear his voice? Well, we call it prayer.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you touched on something there, Pastor Kevin,
Mm-hmm.
which is that if we do hear his voice, then likely we're going to also hear his heart and his heartbeat. And his heartbeat is always for people.
Yeah.
And where can we serve? Where can we give? Where can we do something for someone else?
Mm-hmm.
Because all throughout his life, that's what you see over and over again. Not the politics, not the money, not the recognition, not the religious, but the people. Where would you find Jesus? It would be serving, loving
People.
on people.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if you're listening to his heartbeat and you're listening to him as you're praying, then you're likely are going to be around people, serving people, giving to people. It's so interesting because we just had our primaries, I think it wasn't it?
Right.
Just,
yeah, this past week,
just
Tuesday.
I don't know what time you all are watching this at, but we just had our primaries here, and that's what politicians are supposed to be, right? They're supposed to be servants of the people. Well, where do we get all of this? Because even that in itself wasn't the case in Roman culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's almost like people want that and it's expected. And whenever a politician doesn't do that, you go like, but why not? And so we,
Well, because I think
pardon the pun, right? We crucify them because
Yeah.
they're not serving people, because we are expecting that from them right
exactly.
Yeah.
now. Which is not a bad thing, by the way. I would say that's exactly the way it ought to be.
Right.
I was gonna say like just like anything else that's not, that's in the world, it just could be corrupted. I think even though like it was planted and it was formed, United States, I mean, under these values, the very Judeo-Christian values, that tradition, that government, that greed, that government seeking like
Hunger for power.
hunger for power, and all that like seeps in. And it's really the devil. I mean, it's
Yeah, at
him
the end of the day.
influencing,
Yeah, at the end of the day.
and so that's gonna go into any type of government up until when Jesus comes back, I imagine. And so
Or any position really of
Right.
authority. I think that I don't know. I mean, now we're like, I'm hanging on a limb on this. I don't know if every single one of those Sadducees and Pharisees started out wrong. Maybe they started with the right intentions,
of course,
but that power, right?
Yeah.
That pride.
and it
Yeah.
and it throws like a little like in the parentheses of the story, like for us again, I keep relating our positions to them because
Absolutely,
of where our function is, but it throws a little warning of like, check your heart too.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
Check your heart as pastors, like what you're
Absolutely.
saying, like you're servants of people.
Absolutely.
You're what did Jesus say, the servant of all.
Absolutely.
That's the greatest
You're
of
the
all.
least.
So
Right.
I mean, even that is countercultural.
Yeah.
What?
Right.
Like, that makes no
that's
sense.
the opposite of what the world
Right.
is telling us, or
Like,
what the
you're supposed to be the king. If you're the king, you're supposed to have like, you'll be the top. You're not
Yeah.
you're not at the bottom. And
Yeah.
here he is washing the disciples' feet.
But it's a warning to like that greed and that desire for power
Yeah.
can go even to the religious, even to the
Yeah.
church. It seeps in,
Yeah. Well, knowledge puffs up, right?
and
So we
and
hear.
so that's just a little.
So there's nothing wrong. Let me just say this.
For
Looking
people
at
watching
the,
at home,
looking at the
right?
camera,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with desiring a politician who is a public servant.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that again. There's nothing wrong with desiring a politician to be a public servant. As a matter of fact, I'll go even further than that. There's nothing wrong with desiring a politician who is not corrupt.
Right. Yeah.
It ought to be that way.
It's true.
And I'm not saying that it's not for some of them,
Yeah.
but it's not the case for all of them. Just like I can say the same thing about religious leaders.
Yeah. It's true.
It is, yes, the intent of Christ, of the Lord, to have religious leaders that love God, that love people.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you let that seep in, that little pride and that power and the money and the pleasure, and you're
It's the
down.
flesh. It's the
yeah,
desires of
you're
the flesh.
down. You're down. You're down. You're going down at that point.
I think also just because we keep saying the religious leaders, but just people who are religious, period. Because it's not,
good.
it's, the leaders, right? We have pastors that are overseeing the church and, pastoring the church, but
Yep.
there's still people in the church that are religious.
Yeah.
And they carry themselves like that. And,
Yeah.
everything is kind of like the log, and it's like, this is how we have to act. This is
Right.
how we have to be in church. You have to go to be a certain way, and Jesus wasn't like that, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting because every religious person that I've met that is like that, judgmental, and what they want to do, they want to strip away your rights, your
Right.
freedoms.
Yes.
I would say the word is freedom,
Right.
which is the freedom that Jesus gives you.
Yeah.
And they want to strip that away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say things that Jesus never said.
Yeah.
That is not even in the scriptures. Like
Right.
you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do this.
Right.
And they are just passing on judgment. And it goes back again to what Pastor Kevin was mentioning about they are so out of tune
Right.
with what Jesus and who Jesus
With his heart.
and
Yeah.
the heart of and the heartbeat of Jesus, right? And they are almost projecting their lack of and onto some other people.
Right.
They put him to do, and the Pharisees did that. I mean,
Yeah.
people in modern day today, we still have Pharisaical people
Right.
that might not have the title of a pastor, but they still can become very judgmental, and that was not what Jesus intended ever to be the case, right? So
I think also like what triggered that mentality of Pharisees in that time was that Jesus wasn't one of them, or like he he wasn't a king, he wasn't like a authoritative king in a horse, with the sword.
Yeah.
But the other thing was that, like, who is this guy? Isn't this guy from isn't this a Nazarene? Like, what is he?
Right.
What does he bring to the table?
Yeah.
And I think Paul also, before Paul, when he was Saul, he was studying to become a Sadducee and be a teacher of the law.
Pharisees. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think what bothered people like him before he was Paul, because he went out and got all these Christian, Jesus followers killed or arrested. It's that jealousy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
that jealousy of like, why this random guy?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why? Like, if anybody really, what I think sometimes
Yeah.
they wanted it to be them.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh man, that's a good topic.
I
right there,
wanted to
buddy.
be. I
Absolutely,
wanted to
man.
be the Messiah. I wanted to, because I know so much more than you, dude. Like,
Yeah,
what do
no
you know?
kidding. And don't we see that in life today nowadays?
Yeah.
Too?
All the
No.
time.
But that's the devil. I mean, that's the spirit
And
of the devil.
that's
Yeah.
that's what I was going to. Yeah, it's the enemy.
Yeah.
And if you let it, like, just that hint of jealousy and why this guy or why that person, dude, you need to rebuke that spirit, because it's it's not coming from
Right.
God. It's not in the Bible. And so
Sometimes it might not even come in the form of jealousy, but as in comparison.
Yeah. Correct.
You start comparing your accolades, what you know,
Yeah.
where you've been, how you've
Yeah.
come around, and things that
Yeah.
you've experienced, and we start comparing ourselves about
Yeah.
almost like I know more about what the Bible says, or I
Mhm.
can discern scripture better, or I understand this better, and we start creating that comparison, and now it's like, is that spirit of a Pharisee in us
no.
that we have to watch out for? Where you're
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you go back to the Bible, the devil or Satan was before the fall.
Mm.
He was an angel, right? So
that's right,
he was
Lucifer,
Lucifer, correct? He was.
the worship leader.
That's what it says.
What's up with
Yeah,
that?
Yeah, it's great.
Was it?
It's
And hey,
also
both of you guys are worship leaders. We're
we
worship
used to be.
leaders.
We
at
used to
one-
be worship
Oh,
leaders once
okay.
upon a time.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
very much.
So,
Yeah.
So he wanted to be just like God. He wanted to be
yeah.
exalted and adored as God. And so
But it's it's the same mentality.
it's a mindset. Yeah.
Like, why him?
Right.
I'm beautiful.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
It should be me.
because the Bible did say he was the most beautiful angelic being. Right?
Yes.
Yeah,
he was.
He was.
I mean, he was created for that purpose, to really
Right.
reflect the glory of God. That's
That's
what
right.
that's what it was, and
That's
that's why we were created. But what I'm saying is that same mentality, that same like lie, that whisper comes, can come to all of us,
Yeah.
and start corrupting and
And again, it's so counter Jesus
Yes.
because that is self-serving
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to I'm going to serve others. I'm
Yeah.
going to give to others.
Yeah.
So I think to stay humble, and you got to be careful, right? Because there are people that say, well, I serve a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I give to a lot of people. I am here as a public servant, but their hearts are so far away from
Yeah. Yeah.
loving people. They love the crowds.
Mm,
There's a difference between loving a crowd and loving people.
that's good.
I can love the crowd and I can hate people.
Yeah.
They're an inconvenience to me. Crowds are convenient to me,
Right.
so that I can get more power, so that I can get more glory, so that I can get more recognition. And that is anti-Jesus. Jesus
Right.
was not about the people. He was he was not about the masses and the recognition. He was about serving people,
Right.
serving others.
That closeness, that one-on-one, the pastoring side of it.
So he
good.
did it all. He did the
Right.
the crowds. He did but then he had his 12 disciples.
Right.
But the heart, that was his heartbeat. It was people.
Yeah.
He didn't care
So was.
if Pilate would get mad. He didn't care if the religious leaders of the time would get upset at him. He didn't care what the establishment said. So as far as he would love people,
Yeah.
that was
And he loved
countercultural.
people all the way to the end of the cross.
At
Right
that
there,
moment.
right there with the
Oh
thief.
man, absolutely.
Like, and he was, they're
He's loving
thieves.
on the thief.
They're
Wow.
thieves.
Well, I mean, not even just the thief. The soldiers that were crucifying him, he says, "Father,
Forgive
forgive
them."
them.
Yeah.
They know not what they do."
The
Like,
guy
man,
piercing his side like
Yeah.
with a spear, like he's like, forgive them. This
Mm-hmm.
guy like had love all over.
right?
It was coming out of him like it was.
Yeah.
So
I could just imagine. Well, if we just stay on that topic for a second, like
yeah.
those guys that did that, the ones that crucified Jesus, just the thought of after it happened and to see that he didn't die the way they intended him to die.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
was that feeling that those guys must have felt? Like, man, was this guy right? Was he the real thing after all? Like, was this countercultural guy
Yeah.
who was claiming to be the Messiah, whom we crucified because he was blaspheming? Like, is he?
Because they must have
Was he-
heard. Some of them must have heard his preachings because when there's large gatherings,
Yeah.
Right.
which in his sermons there were,
Right.
Yeah.
like feeding of the 5,000, there had to be like some Roman authority there.
They knew.
So they heard about this guy and obviously didn't believe him. They had their gods, but now they're seeing him like die
the way he died too.
the way he died.
Yeah.
Although
That's
they,
pretty wild.
they heard about his sermons for sure.
Oh, yeah.
They heard about him preaching and talking about the good news. And the way we know it is because at the last, of course, we have two criminals right next to him, and one of them is saying, "Hey, you can save yourself and you can save us too. If you are
They knew.
really the Messiah, if
Right.
you are really
They
the
heard
king."
about him.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, they
they
did.
knew about him. If you are really the Messiah, if you are really who you say you are, if you're the Son of God, and why don't you save yourself and save us too while you're at it? And then the right attitude of the other gentleman, the other criminal, I called him a gentleman.
gentleman.
He wasn't. He was a thief.
He was I don't
rat,
know about,
bro.
yeah, he was a rat more than a gentleman. The other criminal goes, "Hey man, don't you know, like you are denying Jesus, you are demeaning Jesus."
We're
'Cause that's
getting
exactly
what we deserve. He says, "We're getting what we deserve."
exactly right. He says, "Hey, we deserve this. He doesn't. He's perfect."
And then Jesus loving a thief, like
And right there, Jesus turns around and says, "Hey," and the guy says, "Jesus, remember me. Remember me at the cross." I mean, he's being crucified, a criminal, and he says, "Jesus, remember me."
Right.
And Jesus says, "Today," I love that. "Today you will be with me in paradise." Like today, you'll be in heaven. Now, this is interesting to me. I'm going to talk a little bit. I think I'm going to speak about that a little bit on Sunday, where he didn't make this eloquent prayer of salvation. That's another thing that we talk about. Oh my gosh, I might just get in trouble for saying that. This thief, criminal, call it what you may, didn't do an elaborate prayer of salvation.
Right.
He just said, "Sí, Señor, I want in." Remember
Right.
me.
Right.
And Jesus, okay, you believed, you're
That's what
saved.
it was. He believed.
You're saved.
Yeah.
Remember, I love
Isn't
how
that
he
crazy?
says,
You're saved.
Remember me when you come into your kingdom. He knew that he was.
Well, wait a minute, but he
Remember-
didn't go through the steps.
Right.
Like he's supposed to pray this
yeah,
and this
he's
and this.
supposed to
I
go
know.
and do that, and
No, he did. He just repeat after me. No, he just believed.
that's a good title for a song or a sermon. Remember me.
Remember me.
And
They
then
There's
already
a
made
song.
it. Coco.
No, I was gonna say, remember me.
My
Well,
daughter.
we can even tag that along, like put
No.
that as the theme music.
Have you ever wondered about your purpose in this world? At International Christian Center, we believe God created you on purpose for a purpose. God has placed special gifts and abilities in you so that you can help others come to know God. To help discover your purpose, we've designed the Growth Track. In the Growth Track, we will guide you through simple steps where you will learn more about your gifts and how you can use them to serve your community. For more information, visit an ICC location or visit iccenter.org.
In this context now, we should talk about what it would be like if Jesus came during this time, or what's
Yeah.
happening in this time. Like,
Yeah.
how would God view us
I'm gonna get some snacks
now? Yeah, get some snacks, dude.
I'm
Yeah, I got
hungry.
little. We don't have any more coffee, so we have some agüita,
So,
and I think the
well,
coffee's
agüita.
kicking in. To be honest,
Well, if Jesus was here today, he would for sure make football the world sport as it is. And he would select the best soccer player in the history of the world, Lionel Messi.
Thank you.
I think you're probably right.
That's what Jesus
Hey,
would
Pastor
do.
Vic, you want some popcorn? Pastor Vic loves popcorn.
I'm sorry,
That's
those
countercultural.
Ronaldo fans. I love you very much.
Ronaldo.
And listen, Ronaldo is the best player, human player. Lionel Messi is the best of the best because he's an alien.
He's not even from here.
He's not human. He's not even human. It's not even fair. Anyway, so Jesus would establish Lionel Messi as the greatest
Well, you
player
know,
that has ever played the game of soccer.
Would he go to a game? Like, would that be Jesus?
Wait,
Jesus would definitely go to a
do you
game.
think that that's still like a debate? Abner, you would know more. Is that still a debate?
No, it's not.
Oh, we
That's
have
not even. That's not even. a
Abner's our
debate.
producer, video
Well,
producer.
But
thinks
Cristiano
Cristiano's the best
never
in
won
the
a
world.
World Cup, right? Then the
Thank you
debate's
very-
over.
thank you very
That's
much.
It. I mean,
This is
unfortunately, the
microphone-
debate's over.
Microsoft,
Yeah, I mean,
mic-
But it's the whole LeBron.
and I like Cristiano, but I mean,
No.
it's
It's the whole LeBron versus
Well-
Michael Jordan too.
he's the most followed guy on Instagram, Cristiano.
Cristiano?
Yeah, Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah, he is.
really
yeah.
is.
Well, because he scores the most goals, I think, right?
I don't
I
know.
think he does have that stat.
Yeah,
actually.
he's I think he does right now.
Anyway,
he does
we're
have
talking
that
about Jesus.
right.
Well, Jesus would walk on
We
water.
went with.
He wins all the games. Right?
He wins all the games. He would be the greatest player of all time, of
No,
course.
but that's a good question because what would he say, Pastor? Because we kind of spoke a lot about not being, this ultra religious mentality.
yeah,
Right.
But it's truth and grace. It's a balance.
yeah.
And he loved people, yes. But how do you attack the topics of like? How would Jesus attack the topics of abortion, homosexuality, all these things that are being pushed by society,
Yeah.
and they're even trying to teach our kids in schools that kindergarten, first grade, they're trying to teach them like about sexuality,
Right.
the fluidness of it, and
This-
how,
I don't even
aggressiveness,
understand
right?
that whole fluidness of
it's
things.
it's
right?
a spectrum. If to them it's
Fluid,
like
like,
it
what
could go
the
anywhere. It can be anything. So
world is
Right.
that?
so
What's that
how would
mentality?
Jesus approach that? Like what would he say? Let's talk about not even homosexuality. Let's talk about just sexual immorality to begin with, because it's not just about LGBT. It's also, imagine those who are having premarital sex.
Yeah,
Though how do you love them like Jesus would have loved them?
yeah.
But at the same time, hey, that's not scriptural.
Yeah, well,
That's not-
I think we talked a little bit about it earlier. We said that he is the cornerstone,
Right.
which means he is eternal. He remains the same.
right.
He doesn't
Which is great.
change, right?
Which is great.
Which
Yeah.
is great. Well, the whole alphabet is changing all the time. I don't even know where we're at. Frankly, I don't even know what alphabet we're in. What letter are we in anymore?
Right. And you're referring to LGBTQ
Q-
AI plus.
I don't know,
right?
man.
It's AI
It's
plus.
plus
right?
now because
Anything
it's
could fit
ever
in.
it's ever so changing, and I think let's be just frank here. We don't know what in the world we're doing with this whole thing. It's a mess. It's a genuine mess,
Right.
and it's in the history of the world. Sexuality has been a mess. Whenever we back again to the hard issue, whenever we start departing from Jesus,
Right.
and we start doing our own thing. And so, how would Jesus handle it today? I think he would still love people because we've kind of been mentioning that right here.
Yeah, he would definitely love people. Yeah.
Yet he would still confront people. So let's go back to that story of that woman that got caught in the act of adultery.
Right. Poor girl.
Jesus, well,
Poor girl, man.
Well, yeah.
She was caught in the act.
Well, yeah.
Imagine Jesus walking in on one of us if we weren't married.
Well, it wasn't Jesus that caught her. It was the
I know,
the
the
religious
Pharisee.
folks.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right, right.
And the
Just try to
question.
imagine that.
I know. I don't
Please,
imagine.
let's not even go there. But it
Right.
was like, what were the religious people doing there? Were they recording it? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, what
Right.
what were they?
What were they doing there?
I mean, they
knew.
were like they must looking through the window.
Yeah, of course.
little
Yeah,
weird.
they must have heard chisme,
Yeah.
gossip,
Yeah.
and they knew what was happening. And
3
so
o'clock, they usually
that
kinda, do their thing,
And
you
so
know, yeah.
she was caught in the act of adultery. She's about to get stoned and killed in front. I mean, it was a gruesome, really way of dying.
Yeah.
You're being
Yeah, it would've been
stoned,
horrible.
and so
And we're not talking about recreational stuff.
no,
right?
not that kind of stone.
Hurling-
No, we're talking about
hurling rocks
being
at you.
hurling rocks
Right.
at her and all of that, right? So Jesus goes and defends her,
Right.
loving her, because I think you have two extremes. You have the religious people that all they want to do is
Wanna
like
kill all the-
sneer them,
Kill
like
all the sinners.
you are. You are an abortionist. You are and you name the
Adulterer.
alpha.
Yeah, all of it.
Crucify them, and Jesus would never do that.
Right.
Jesus defends the lady, and then after he defends her, and says, "Look, who is accusing you? Who is judging you?" He's loving on her, but then he says something very interesting.
Here it is. Yeah.
What did he say? What did Jesus say? Let's see if you guys know your Bible,
Right.
and you guys hear pastors
Yeah.
putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
What did Jesus tell this lady after everyone leaves? Everyone who's accusing her, they all leave.
Right.
And then he turns around and asks the question, "Hey, who's accusing you now?
Right.
No one's accusing you. No one's judging you. You are free.
Neither do I. He says. That's
Neither do I."
right.
But then he tells her something. What did he say?
Get up and go and sin no more.
Let's no more.
Go and sin no more. In other words, leave that kind of lifestyle.
Right.
Right.
It's not right. So Jesus didn't justify it. Jesus loved her. And I feel as if right now in our culture is like you want to play a blind eye.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
And no,
Yeah.
that's not loving. Loving means like, listen, I'm gonna be there for you.
Yeah. I love what you just said. though.
Right?
Like I'm so tired of the you do you, I do me mentality. Like you know what and you know that mentality that's out there, right? Like, hey, I'm not gonna get involved in their business. Like they let them do me or let them do them,
Yeah.
and I'll do me. And that's so not Jesus.
Yeah.
Like Jesus
Well, even worse,
confronted, right?
and even worse now, it's like they just cancel culture you, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's cancel culture, cancel culture. You can't even say anything,
Right.
Because it's considered hate speech or it's considered.
Right.
But
Yeah, like I was just having this conversation the other day, which is so interesting that when we've gotten to a place where we can't disagree on something and be friends anymore.
correct,
And the goal of it, like we should always be able to disagree about things,
Correct.
but still be friends at the end of the day.
Right.
But that cancel culture thing has taken over so much that if
Yeah.
you and I don't agree on something, there's hate, and
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to have anything to do with you at all. You know, and man, it's horrible that it's gotten to that. Because right now we can have this awesome conversation, which
Absolutely.
we're having, but try having this with other people who are on that side of, oh, you don't agree with me?
absolutely. And listen, man, maybe you're watching, you're
Right.
hearing this right now, and you're saying, I totally disagree with the pastors, or I totally disagree with Pastor Jared and Pastor Kevin, especially Pastor Jared.
Jared, yeah, that
I
guy.
totally disagree with you guys, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's great that you disagree. What is not great, it's taking the freedom away from disagreeing with someone.
Right, right.
Just because you don't agree with me,
disagreeing, yeah.
and I'm shutting you out. And that is back again to the whole spirit of the Pharisees.
It's extremists.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't say anything because we want to strip away your freedom.
Yeah.
And that's what religious nuts do. They want to strip away your freedom. They'll say things like, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. Well, wait a minute. They are religious nuts, and there are also other nuts out there
Right.
that just want to take away the freedom for you to express
There's both
yourself.
extremes.
Correct.
So then you would say Pastor Vic has a master's in divinity, by the way.
Yeah, he
so
does.
he's gonna correct us if we're saying
Let's not,
something.
let's not put it out there. But yeah, absolutely.
He would have showered them with love first.
I would say so, yes.
He would like
Accept them.
kind of like break the barriers down.
I'm gonna say that again for those religious people that are hearing this right now, because I think you have two extremes. People are like, oh, kill them.
Mm-hmm.
No, Jesus would never do that. He would absolutely love them.
Right. So he would break down any walls, break down and let me go eat with
Let's
them
go hang
in their
out.
house.
Let's go hang out.
And I'm talking about love them. When I said the word them, I'm talking about every sinner.
All of
Every
us.
sinner.
All of
Let's
us.
talk about every sinner.
Yeah, and he would shower them with love,
Right.
meet a need probably.
Absolutely.
The lady that was about to get stoned, she needed somebody to
Absolutely.
stand up for her.
Absolutely.
Right.
Probably her family members were not even.
Maybe they had the stones too.
Yeah. So he meet a need,
Yes.
love on them, and then go and sin no more. So confront the sin.
Yeah, I think you touched on something very, very important there, about Pastor Kevin. Pastor Kevin. I like the sound of that.
Bishop
Getting-
Kevin.
Bishop Kevin. That's what I like the sound of that. But I think you touched on something, and because the question lies now as to what is to love somebody. What does that even look like?
Right.
Because we've lost that. I mean, that in itself has been lost.
Yeah, that what is, and then how, right?
Correct.
Because you could go. I don't think that would have worked if Jesus would have done the go and sin no more part first. You know, I
Right.
think there's an order to
Absolutely.
things.
Yeah, well, John Maxwell, I think, said it, or maybe it's Craig, but you got to connect before you correct.
Yeah.
Like, if there's no heart, there's no equity in our relationship.
Absolutely. Now you're getting somewhere, pastors.
Yeah,
now
then-
we're getting
then-
somewhere.
Yeah, so the pushback that we get a lot from that
Anyone.
from anyone
Yeah,
who
yeah.
is in sin or his, just used to that lifestyle is going to probably be pushback because you're not loving
Well,
them.
let's
you know?
let's be frank here. We are all sinners.
Sinners. Yeah,
Right.
all of us.
So
Yeah.
that means if I put anyone under a microscope, and this is for all the religious folks,
Right.
if I were to put everyone under a microscope, I would find a flaw.
Of course.
I would find a sin.
Yes.
And so, and before
I mean, even Paul said, I have a thorn in my side. No one
Before-
knew what it is.
God Almighty, that means you're a sinner, just like
Right.
anyone else that you're passing judgment on. So, how would you like yourself to be treated?
Right. Right.
And that's the question, right? We want to ask ourselves, how would you like someone else to treat you? And Jesus said it over and over again. Love others as yourself. Love them.
Right.
Well, you have to love yourself to love others.
right.
Well, the question back again to that you brought in, Pastor Kevin and Kevin and Jared, you mentioned the road to it is meeting the needs of people
Right.
right where they're at. And I don't think we do that a lot, especially now on social media. It's all about attacking and being vicious. And I'm going to prove my point. What point are you proving? You're not
Yeah.
proving anything.
Yeah, so
it's frustrating.
oh man, it's social media stuff, man. Like,
That's the worst.
because it's so hard to do both. It's so hard to show love on social media.
No,
like
you
it's
can't.
it
That's
comes
so-
even if you try, it comes off a little bit like fake because it's like a try hard.
Well, because you haven't given anything.
Yeah,
You have
and
no,
no
you have
equity.
no skin
and then
in
and
the
then
game.
the correcting is kind of like it doesn't weigh anything because it's just like, who are you? Like, you don't have no
You don't even know me.
you have no relationship with me. So
Correct.
so
And not only that, but people, when you're in this kind of conversational setting, you know, you're in this moment, you can see the tone, you can see the body language.
or at least hear it.
Right. But when you're on social media, and I hate when I see it too, you'll see 50 comments and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? This
gonna
this
get
got, this
good
got
in that
hot. Get the popcorn, right? You know. So I look at it and I'm like, I never once heard anybody say, you know what,
I changed my mind.
you're right.
I changed my mind. Yeah.
You know, man, you're so right. I think
That's not gonna
I'm
happen
so
ever.
dumb.
That's
What was
not
it?
gonna-
What was I thinking? It's never gonna happen. It's
Well,
just-
let me put it to you this way: if you're listening and you're a Christ follower, or maybe you are a religious person, or maybe you feel like you are a religious person, or you have a master's in divinity, whatever the case, or a PhD, whatever the case is, listen, before you can tell anyone, and I mean anyone, what they ought or not to do, ought or ought not to do, and I'm not talking about preaching. I'm just talking about going to someone's business.
yeah,
Yeah.
Meet their needs first.
yeah, that's right.
Meet and
That's right.
love
That's
them first.
Love them. Meet a need that they have right now.
I saw a post that said, if you want to flip tables for people, like if you want to justify your anger by saying that Jesus flipped tables, if you want to be the kind of person that flips tables, you got to be the kind of person that would also die on the cross for those people.
Absolutely.
Because
true.
Jesus-
That's so good.
Jesus corrected, but he died for all of us.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so, are you willing? We're so quick to point out our own flaws in other people.
Yeah.
But are we quick to say, you know what, I'd take a bullet for you. I'll die for
Absolutely.
you. for your freedom.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's how you should probably weigh out your,
Yeah.
like you said, your judgmental opinions.
And
or-
maybe I'm focusing so much on the religious side of things, but that's my business. That's what I do. I'm an ordained minister.
Right.
Once upon a time, I used to be remember
Minister
Pastor Jerry?
of the gospel.
Minister of the gospel.
The other day,
I
you
used-
just slid the old certificate underneath the door. That was funny.
I used to be the minister of the gospel, meaning that I wasn't quite a pastor yet. I was making my way to becoming a pastor, and I used to flaunt that everywhere. I'm
know.
a minister of the gospel,
babe.
And playing around, of course, everyone. But I think I'm hard on us in a sense of loving others. We have to love other people.
Yes.
Is the culture today what Jesus would approve of? And the answer is, well, was the culture in Rome what Jesus would approve of? Because that's where he lived in,
No.
No. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
right? So, and if we were to compare the two, were Jesus to approve the culture in Roman Empire, because they had all the same problems we currently have right now.
Yeah. They did.
I mean, they had the sexual problems, they had the political problems. Man, there was political problems were even worse.
Right.
Yeah.
They had the religious problems. They were probably worse.
That's right. Yeah.
Yet Jesus, he focused on loving people. He focused on building people up.
Yeah. He did.
He
Do we-
focused on the word.
Do we know, Pastor Vic? Because I don't think the Bible specifies. Do we know if that adulterous woman kept on sinning or not? Do we know? Not her specifically. What I'm trying to say is she might have, and Jesus still loved on her.
Right.
Jesus still forgave her in that moment, and rescued her. But she might have just chosen to continue to live like that. I think even whether, and I say that because when we encounter people who, even if you love them, even if you shower them with love, and they still continue to choose to live in sinful lives, we shouldn't be like, we should continue to love on them.
I think like
We can't be like, okay, well, maybe the gospel isn't effective when I preach it or whatever. We can't like think about it that way because we don't really know people's.
I think you need to make a contrast between when you say that, because for someone that's watching at home right now, they're saying like, wait, what if she didn't sin like anymore? Like, we're all going to continue sinning because we're not perfect.
Good point, yeah.
Living in
Right.
sin, right?
So I think
That's the word.
we're continuing to do the thing that we know is that sin, and
Right.
and having been forgiven, that's one thing, but to say I repent and I'm not going to do it anymore, right? So when you're saying that, what do you mean? Because we're all going to keep sinning.
I meant keeping living in adultery.
like she was going to do that,
I doubt that she did, because when you're touched by the gospel,
right?
like it's the Holy Spirit. It's like it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
you grieve the Holy Spirit, and the Spirit lives in you, and so your spirit grieves too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think what my point was how do you keep loving on people even though they keep choosing? They might still keep choosing.
Well, there are two things that come to mind. One of them is that whenever you love on someone, you don't expect anything in return.
It's good.
And so Jesus loved on her,
Mm,
and she encountered love, true love, genuine love.
yeah.
So you don't expect anything in return. That's one thing. Second thing is, just because you love on people, and I'm just going to talk to those people that are in a relationship right now, you don't allow people to abuse that relationship. And I think I've even talked about that.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Man.
So you say, well, he beats me up, my husband or my boyfriend, and is beating me up. So am I supposed to love him? Am I supposed to forgive him? Well, yeah, you'll forgive him, but you need to run away, honey. You know?
Don't enable the
Correct. You're not a
Don't stand
doormat.
behavior.
Yeah.
You're not a doormat. So, and that includes everyone, right?
Got it.
In your workplace, anywhere.
right.
You're not a doormat. God has not called you to be a doormat.
That's right.
Don't be dumb.
Right.
yeah.
God has called you to love people, and you set some boundaries where you're not stripped away from the freedoms that God has given you. I come back again to the whole freedom God has given us. And I think that's why you have this cultural battle in this country, in America, and it affects it all over the world, because there is a fight
Yeah.
for freedom. And it sounds so
Like Braveheart.
like
More like the sounds like Lord of the Rings, dude.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
and it sounds like it, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
but it's the truth. We're fighting for freedom because it is being trampled on.
Mm-hmm.
And all of it is for a fake religion. Because at the end of the day, it's still a religion. Call it what you may, under the mantra of whatever you want to call that.
Yeah.
Whenever someone or something or a faction or a movement wants to strip away the freedoms that are ordained by the Lord, that are ordained by God, it's wrong.
Right.
It's wrong. And it needs to stop, basically. And so that's why you see this fight going on in America right now. There's a fight. I think it's a fight for freedom. That's really what it is. And you have people that are saying, well, I see freedom a certain way, you see freedom a certain other way. Well, I would dare to say, go to what Jesus did.
Yeah.
And back again to what Jesus said, and how he would set people free from sin, how he would set people free from their lifestyle that maybe was hurting them, really, at the end of the day. And so anyway,
Yeah. So to go back,
without
it would
beginning to preachy.
it would be Jesus loving on people.
Right.
It would shower them with love. He would confront the sin, not expect anything in return, but there will be freedom, because where the spirit of the where the spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom.
Absolutely.
And the process of regeneration, of the process of them transforming, like from the old lifestyle to the new lifestyle, should not be expected. Like, it's not a cookie cutter thing. Everybody's different. Everybody's got different traumas. Everybody's got different
Areas.
personalities, like how they deal with correction, but I believe that you continue loving people, you continue on that journey with them, be patient, like constantly think, how would Jesus show love to them?
Right.
And how do I not become this judgmental, or like, I've been just praying for this for a long time, and this person is still. I like what you said. Don't expect anything.
Right.
You're not going to change them. It's the Holy Spirit who's going to change them.
That's right.
Right. Now, I think one of you kind of gave almost like the steps. I think one of them too, at the end of it, like God always gave a next step to everyone he encountered.
Yeah.
You said it, the girl that was caught in the act of adultery, it was
Yeah.
go and sin no more.
Or
That's
the girl
next thing.
the lady from the well.
Right.
The girl from
Not,
Ipanema.
not the lady from the well.
Oh, sorry.
The woman from the well.
Not the girl from Ipanema.
Right,
That's
right,
the.
right.
Have you heard that song? The girl.
Oh
from
yeah,
Ipanema?
yeah. That's right.
I'm so sorry, guys. It's my APD mind.
No, that's good. How does that, man? Who did it?
I'm so sorry. I cut.
Michael-
I
Michael
got
Blake.
the
Michael
groove. It
Blake
was
did it.
No, well, there's a lot of them.
Oh.
such a nice
Dun,
groove.
dun, 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 dun. That's the same one. That's the one.
No.
Is that a different? Yeah, that's the one. It's because there's a guy who does it too.
Anyway, I'm so
and-
sorry.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead, pastors.
But
Keep
what,
on preaching.
yeah, but what
it.
we were
I'm so
saying, like
sorry.
he always gives the next step. To them,
okay.
the guy that he healed, the person that was
Yes.
paralyzed. He said, "What did he say?" He's like, "Your sins are forgiven. Pick up your mattress and get in and walk. Like go."
Right.
The guy they brought in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus always gave a next step to people,
Give a next step.
and
Yeah,
I
that's a good one.
think that's probably something that we all need. So it's
Yes.
like, and even for people who are religious folks, people who don't know Jesus, people that are watching this right now and are probably
Yeah.
thinking these guys are a bunch of idiots. Like, hey, we all have a next step. We're all in our own journey.
Exactly.
And my next step may be different from your next step, but in the end, the goal is that it gets us one step closer to God.
Did you say idiotes?
Idiotes, right?
Idiotes.
Right.
Yeah. And I
the
say
Greek-
that, and I
Greek.
say that because no matter, I guess, how unqualified you might feel,
Right.
it's the gospel that brings people. to
Absolutely.
Jesus.
It's the good news.
It's the
So
good
good,
news that's
yeah.
gonna want them to leave their lifestyle.
Correct.
It's not
Mm-hmm.
it's not even like like the way you're gonna present it. It's just the Holy Spirit is gonna do that.
and I keep on bringing the whole freedom thing because
Yeah.
if it is so good, then everyone would want it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if it is so good, why is it that people don't want it?
It's our fault. It's the way. It's the way. It's probably the way we're not presenting it, but the way we're trying to carry a load that doesn't belong to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not God. We're
Right.
not gonna save them.
Yeah.
But
Right.
we can love them. We can be the hands and feet of Jesus. We can love
right.
them that way,
That's right.
and let the Holy Spirit do his job.
Yeah.
Let him do it. He's doing to do it better than us.
Yeah, and I think part of it too, like if we want to live a life that's counterculture, then we need to do things that go against the current culture.
Yeah.
And if I would say it like this, how many people are spending time with God every day in prayer, even if
Yeah.
it's for 10 minutes? How many people are reading the word a little bit every day?
Yeah.
Like we want to have that relationship with God. We want to go against the culture, yet we're doing exactly what the culture does, and that's moving further away from Jesus.
Right.
You know, and I think us as church leaders, if you will, and pastors, I think part of our role is to let people know, hey, no matter where you're at right now,
Yeah.
you know, whether you're stuck in a sin, whether, hey, you're just confused, whatever it is, take that step closer to the Lord and every day
Amen.
go against what
That's right.
culture is doing right
That's
now
right.
and pursue Jesus, pursue
Yeah,
righteousness.
I think at the end of the day is, are you frustrated?
yeah,
Are you really
Are you-
frustrated?
Are you sick and tired of it?
Are you, because that's not freedom.
right,
I keep coming back to that
That's
word.
good. No, it's
Right.
good.
Jesus came to set us free.
right,
Don't go based on, well, this is what I've been taught all of my life. Don't go based on, this is what all my little groupies are saying. This
Right.
is what the religious people are. No. Are you frustrated or not?
right.
It's good.
And if you are, then go to Jesus.
Yes.
At the end of the day,
Yeah.
and I mean like an actual relationship with Jesus, like to hear his heartbeat,
Yeah,
back to the master, and then he will be your cornerstone, and then you can build your life on that cornerstone,
Yeah.
That's so good.
and everything else is gonna break.
So to wrap it up,
Yeah.
love on them, shower them with love.
yes.
On people, period.
That's,
All people.
exactly. Whoever they are.
confront the sin. We're not justifying with
Right.
love.
Right.
Doesn't justify this. Is confront the sin
Right.
and give him a next step.
Give them a next step.
Absolutely.
Rinse, repeat. Do it again.
Right. Yeah.
Love on them,
Absolutely.
confront the sin, and give him a next step. Would that
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
a good?
Yeah.
I think God would do that. If
Absolutely.
he
I
came,
believe that.
right now
Yeah.
in 2024, he
Yeah.
would use the same tactic. He'd
Yeah.
love. Yeah, he'd deposit love to us. He just he would
And
do
and when we say loving people, is adding value to people.
that. right.
It's not taking away from people, demanding from people, but giving to people. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we ought to do, ladies and gentlemen.
that's what-
Give to people what God has given you.
Yeah.
Give them a smile. Be nice to them. All those things that we all desire, give to people. Jesus loved us. We ought to love others. So thank you so much for listening to this. I hope
Yeah.
you enjoyed the conversation as much as we enjoyed having them. And until then, God bless. God loves you. And we absolutely love you.